Today's daily drawing exercise is a charming little roof vent that I noticed as we paused at some lights driving through the city recently. So I took a quick photo on my phone and here it is. So it's got some challenges. I'm drawing it with my 0.2 millimeter Copic multi-liner pen. I start with this central part because I think that lets me move upwards and downwards. And I think it's probably the most straightforward part to establish some proportions. And the challenging thing with these little slats, these louvers in such events, is to fit them into the overall perspective pattern that we're establishing with the, if you like, outside lines of the vent areas. So I'm trying to get a sense of how wide this is in proportion to the part I've already drawn. It's not as wide, but it's a fairly oblique angle. We're looking about, we're not looking on at 45 degrees, but it's not far off that. So the sides are more equal than we would often see. Now, there is a considerable overhang given the size of this vent of the little copula on top. So I work at trying to draw adequate overhang and to be very slowly increasing the angle of the lines as they go upwards horizontally. And then I'm left thinking, am I going up or down now? So I established the, if you like, the bottom edge just to visually give me a somewhat more solid base, but I have decided already I will go upwards with this. I slightly simplify the top of the surrounds of the louvers because I think that's going to give me more chance of more accuracy more easily. And now I've got the cupola. So as you can see, I'm visualizing it as if it sort of has a flat top and using that to get a sense of the angles. And then I just intend to try and give a rounded edge right on the edge. And trying to get a sense of exactly where this curve lands, how far before the corner the curve lands, so that I get that little nose on the end there. And then with this one, it's important to line up where we want the end of it to be, I think, before we start the top. Knowing where a line finishes is a great help in getting it to that location. So I always try to remember to give some indication, and more than some indication, some consideration even, just thinking about where the line is going to be. And then the same on this side. And because sometimes these lines don't end up being in the place we expect them to be, we think, oh, this line's halfway. And then we realize that because of the form and because of the angle we're viewing from, that in fact it's not what at a quick glance is halfway, and we've placed it in the wrong spot. And again, particularly where there's a curve at the end, that can really start to affect where we put things. But having done that, I now just make sure I center what's going to go on top as best as can be centered on what I've drawn. You're watching me draw this at 1.5 times speed. So this is fairly close to my actual drawing speed. And then there's this thing on top. I don't really know what it is. I presume it's not a wind vane because there's nothing to catch the wind, although quite possibly that square we see on the left-hand side had some sort of fabric or something over it once just to help the vane spin. However, it's a nice little decorative element for observation, and we both have the form to create, but also to put it into the perspective that we have. And with these curves, that just gives a little more effort to doing that. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how's my proportions overall going. Without having intended to, I'm drawing this larger than actual size. Well, actual size of the photo reference, of course. So now I'm working out the base, and there's this quite bold banding, 45-degree banding, running crisscrossing against the sides. So I want to try and position these so that they look nicely spaced, but I also particularly want to create the three-dimensional feel. They are actually quite rounded. They do give a considerable sense of depth to the structure, so I want to capture that as well. I don't want them to look like they're just strips of tape that have been put in a pattern running down the front and the side of this vent. So I'm trying to capture that size, that depth, and part of that is getting that protruding past the edge. And this is where it can be good to do dotted lines or light lines with our pen, if we've got a pen that enables us to kind of scratch some quarter strength lines with the ink that can give us an indication as we draw without locking in the final form. And so now I'm just trying to get the sense of spacing. And look, there are a couple of spots when I'm doing this where I had in my head the perfect spot. I'd positioned the couple of lines above really nicely, and then for some reason I just put the final line not in the best place to finish the divisions. And I don't know, I'm a bit distracted this morning, so quite possibly my mind wasn't 100% on what I was doing, which I guess is a valuable lesson. If we're distracted by other things, maybe we should go and walk around the block or rake up something in the yard and just clear our head before we start. And so now just trying to add a few bits of shading. This is actually taken on a cloudy day and there wasn't any strong light. But a little indicative shading under these strips does strengthen their sense of roundness, of depth. And then really, I've just got these vents to do, and you'll notice that I do them across in the one line, so to speak. I don't go down. This way it helps me to align the lines more accurately across the face. And then I do the same on the other side. And I also try to align the first one I do with the one that's to the left, sloping off in the other direction. And again, the important thing is getting that perspective alignment. And now I'm thinking, am I finished? And I kind of wish I'd stopped there. I'm looking at those decorative elements on the top, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to do those yet, but I decided just to put some banding along the roof to indicate the foreshortened terracotta tiles that we see. And when I get to the bottom here, I really mess it up. I'm thinking at this point, oh yeah, that looks good. I'll just do a few along the bottom, and then I do a long, heavy, dark one that angles up. There it is. That angles up way too hard, and it's so much darker than everything else that I'm thinking, oh blimey. And hey, my time's up. I'm finished. It is just a drawing exercise. I don't need to be precious, but it is a reminder that it's important not to let attention lapse until we have finished. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Look, there are some challenges in this little vent, but I hope you give it a go. You'll find the photo reference on my channel community page. You've seen how I approached it, and you've seen a couple of pitfalls I fell into, and maybe you can avoid them in your drawing. But look, whatever you draw and however you draw it, make sure you have fun. And I'll see you next time. Bye.